There are many ways to celebrate a work of art. One way in which we celebrate the high art of filmmaking is with an annual American awards ceremony called the Academy Awards, otherwise known as the Oscars. It is the oldest entertainment awards ceremony in the media. Winning an Oscar is considered to be the greatest accomplishment for anyone who works in the film industry. It's a time-honored, cherished landmark of cinematic achievement, and frankly, I don't like it. In my opinion, this is not an appropriate way to celebrate filmmaking. This opinion stems from a few reasons, some of which, I admit, are just things that I kind of find annoying, like the red carpet, for instance. I understand that movie stars are the secular equivalent of lowercase g gods, but filmmaking has become an increasingly sophisticated art form. The red carpet does not reflect that.
All right, I want to walk you down the Mannycam. Here, let me slide this in, Tom.
Oh, God.
Oh, no. By the way, the power cord came out.
I'm also annoyed, as many others are, when music starts playing underneath somebody's acceptance speech. If this is such a high honor, what's an extra 25 seconds to let the winner thank their mom and dad? On the other hand, that's another thing that I find annoying. People who thank their family. The reason why you've won this award was for doing a good job at your job. Your children didn't animate those balloons, your colleagues did. In short, I don't like all the pomp and circumstance. It's superficial, but then again, that is kind of a superficial complaint. I can excuse all of that. If there's one thing that bugs me more than any of this, it's the fact that being an annual awards show, the films, along with their cast and crew, are competing against other casts and crews whose films just so happen to be released during the same year. What happens when multiple nominees are some of the greatest films ever made? In 1939, this is exactly what happened. At the 12th Academy Awards, the nominees for Outstanding Production included such classics as Stagecoach, The Wizard of Oz, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and the Oscar went to none of them, because Gone with the Wind was also released in 1939. Does that mean The Wizard of Oz shouldn't have won, or couldn't have won, had it gone to the 13th Academy Awards? The same thing happened again at the 40th Academy Awards, where the nominees included The Graduate, Bonnie and Clyde, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Guess who won the Oscar? In the heat of the night. I'm not saying that the Academy necessarily made the wrong choice. What I am saying is that I don't think there was a right choice. Sometimes, multiple quote-unquote best pictures come out the same year, and fate doesn't care if you've only got one award for it. It's not just the films themselves that get caught in this dilemma. All nominees are affected by this. An example, which is still in recent memory, is the decades-long losing streak of Leonardo DiCaprio, who might have won an Oscar these years for starring in these films, had it not been for these actors coincidentally starring in these films the same year. So he lost because his timing was bad. A factor totally out of his control.
It strikes me that there's a considerable amount of bullshit going on here.
Look, making a motion picture is a process that can, and often does, take years. So the accident of a film being released one year and not the next is a really stupid thing to be a factor in who's going to win an award of alleged merit. If a good film is timeless, shouldn't timing be irrelevant regarding how much praise it gets? Well, yeah, it should be, but for an annual awards show, it can't be. Now, this is just one shortcoming of the Academy Awards. There are others. As with any institution, it's vulnerable to corruption and favoritism. In an interview with The Independent, James Cameron observed that a majority of Academy members are actors, and are thus biased against films with visual effects. Funny enough, the reason why he made this point was in response to the incentive that the Academy has to nominate big blockbusters in order to boost the ceremony's TV ratings. And while all that is happening, young people complain that movies about them don't get nominated. Black people complain that movies about them don't get nominated, which at least seems to have some effect on who the host will be.
Anne, I must say, you look so beautiful and so hip.
Oh, thank you, James.
Yeah.
You look very appealing to a younger demographic as well.
Thank you very much.
In the name of good business and avoiding bad publicity, the Academy will inevitably trip and stumble over its own biases and politics. But even if we appointed cinematic monks who had no biases and were totally incorruptible, there's still going to be controversy. And that's because storytelling is not supposed to be competitive. If you run a race and cross the finish line first, you win the race. If you play chess and claim your opponent's king, you win the game. But when you tell a story, when you write a screenplay, design costumes, compose music, develop a character, or envision a scene, what exactly constitutes winning? I should take this opportunity to say that I like competition. In my opinion, it's a vital and healthy aspect of life. I'm not against the notion of movie makers competing to spare their feelings. I'm against it because the concept of competition does not apply to movies, which would explain why this concept doesn't really work in practice. Every year, after every ceremony, people complain about how the wrong people won. In a legitimate competition, this shouldn't happen. We don't argue about who really should have won an arm wrestle or a spelling bee. If we could, it would defeat the purpose of competing. So why then should this be considered by anybody to be a legitimate competition? If we can't unanimously agree on who the hell was supposed to win what at the Academy Awards, the awards themselves are a sham. And I'm not trying to be cynical or mind-blowing when I say that. It's really not that much of an observation. These are the working definitions of sham. The Academy Awards is a sham, by definition. So why then are the Academy Awards taken so seriously? Well, a good answer to that question is because this is how we celebrate cinematic achievements. And that's a good thing. It would be a mistake if we didn't, but can't we think of something better than this televised horse race?
And the Oscar goes to...
John Cena!
If, say, for example, films like Milk, The Dark Knight, and Slumdog Millionaire are released the same year, the fact that those films even exist is enough cause for excitement. To watch them and to talk about them is giving them enough praise. But because of all the noise generated by award ceremonies, a lot of our time and energy is instead spent talking about how we didn't expect the winner to win, or how we wanted another nominee to win, or how much of a travesty it is that a film wasn't even nominated. Now, how ironic is that? This is supposed to be how we recognize outstanding films, yet every year it draws our attention away from the films and draws it towards all of the drama and the ruckus being made over how the Academy's limited amount of praise wasn't spread around correctly. I don't like seeing this every year, okay? It's ugly. And in the face of my final criticism, it's also unnecessary, because time has proven, time and time again, that the Oscars are ultimately futile. Outright futile. What effect does the Academy have on the fate of a motion picture? Remember the 12th Academy Awards when The Wizard of Oz did not win the Oscar for Best Picture? Does that somehow change the fact that it's one of the most beloved movies on the planet? Citizen Kane is considered by many to be the best film of all time, but not the best film of 1941. Apparently, How Green Was My Valley is just a little bit better. Other people would argue that 1958's Vertigo is the greatest film ever made. Not only did Vertigo not win Best Picture, it wasn't even nominated, nor was its director nominated, Alfred Hitchcock. Speaking of which, did you know that Hitchcock never won an Oscar for Best Director? Alfred Hitchcock never won an Oscar for Best Director.
You know, I sometimes consider getting out of this business.
You know, maybe the best argument in favor of indifference towards the winners can be found in the worst blunder in Oscars history. That being the finale of the 89th Academy Awards, when Bonnie and Clyde themselves, Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty, were inexplicably given the envelope for Best Actress to announce the winner of Best Picture.
La La Land.
Resulting in the wrong film being announced the winner. But you wouldn't know it. The audience clapped, the music played, speeches were given. La La Land was officially the best picture of the year for about 2.5 minutes.
Guys, I'm sorry. No, there's a mistake. Moonlight, you guys won Best Picture.
Moonlight won. Come on, this is not a joke. This is not a joke. I'm afraid they read the wrong thing.
Moonlight, Best Picture.
And so, the two casts and crews of two profoundly different motion pictures were on stage together, shaking hands, hugging, heaping praise upon one another, and in that moment, the idea of one film being a winner didn't seem very attractive anymore, especially to none other than the host, Jimmy Kimmel.
I would like to see you get an Oscar anyway. Why can't we just give out a whole bunch of them?
think about what just happened there. The host of the Oscars, for crying out loud, understandably flustered and at a loss for words, blatantly questioned the whole point of the ceremony he was hosting.
I opened the envelope, and it said, Emma Stone, La La Land.
Wow, this is
Moonlight, the best picture.
Yeah. Okay.
In a way, the whole thing was a terrific metaphor for just how fleeting an Oscar really is. It was also a reminder of how silly it was to declare a winner in the first place. Now, I realize that all of this applies to the Golden Globes. I'm aware of that. A lot of these arguments apply to the Academy's counterparts as well. The Tony Awards, the Emmy Awards, and the Grammy Awards. Heck, you could apply this line of reasoning to any award given for anything that's not meant to be competitive. And hey, by all means. But the Oscars seems like a good place to start. Of all the various award shows that exist today, the Academy Awards is the oldest and seems to be the most sacred in the entertainment industry. Yet, in my opinion, it's a spectacular misunderstanding of what it attempts to appreciate. I do appreciate the sentiment, but there are many ways to celebrate a work of art. There must be a better way to celebrate movies than this.
When all these are removed and you can look forward and the road is clear ahead and now you're going to create something, I think that's as happy as I would ever want to be.